Hey everyone, this is Kate from Moonflower Moments. Welcome and welcome back. I am filming the video that I most dread and also most look forward to during the year, and that is my top 10 tarot deck list kind of reset. So these are the top 10 decks that are claiming my heart right now. If you ask me if I could only have 10 decks, which decks would they be? Those are the decks that I'm going to share with you today. Now, interestingly enough, only 3 of these decks that I'm sharing with you today made it on my top 10 list last year. So I'll leave a link in the description box below if you want to go ahead and check out that video and see how my tastes have shifted. I'm also going to film a part 2 to this video in which I identify 5 decks that I think will make it on my top 10 list next year. So it'll be a little bit of a prediction, because the top 10 list is always kind of like ebbing and flowing, and I kind of want to honor what it was in the past as well as like kind of leave room for the future and just kind of letting decks kind of come and go on this list as they please. So with that being said, let's not overcomplicate this. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my top 10 decks of all time right now. So coming in at number 10, because I did not cheat, I wanted to have 11 decks, but I told myself I could not cheat. It was a top 10 list. It has to be top 10. Number 10 is going to be my Raven's Prophecy deck. So I am madly in love with this deck. I purchased this around Halloween, which seems to be the appropriate time, but I found that it is much more than just a Halloween reader. This is a deck that really gets me into my most intuitive space. So for example, this King of Cups, I know right off the bat what King of Cups means to me. Usually my keyword for it is diplomat, but this is a deck that kind of encourages me to go beyond the keyword. And so you can really kind of feel someone that is kind of holding the lightness of the feather in his heart, and he holds space for all of those lighter emotions as well. There is depth because this vessel is like so deep and so tall, but at the same time he really holds space for that sweetness, right? You can also bring in the elemental association because the King of Cups is associated with water as well as air, and so I think that that's important. But like, I'm happy to have a deck that really kind of stretches my brain and encourages me to go beyond the surface level. The images tend to move when I work with this deck, so it really kind of speaks to me in an intuitive sense like this. So for example, the Queen of Swords, I really see the water that is rippling from her. I think the artwork is very evocative in that kind of way. It works with my intuition very well. So I think of how the woman, how she shares her world with so much truth and so much insight and so much clarity, and how that impacts everyone else around her. It really brings in that community element to what is known as typically kind of like a harsh suit, which would be the swords. It's how does clarity and truth impact the environment overall, and how can we nurture individuals with that clarity and truth? I think that the color palette is exactly my jam. I really like colors that are rich like this. Look at this, I love this. The Two of Swords, your hands are completely tied. It's like someone asked the deck creator, what does this card mean to them? And instead of just trying to display a keyword, they try to display like a whole concept, right? So like, instead of being like, oh, the tower means like upheaval or destruction, what it really means to them is the experience of like lighting something on fire, like lighting like a funeral pyre in that kind of sense. Because I feel like what's being conveyed to me is not just a keyword, but like a whole concept. And I just think that's so beautiful. Look at this little nook and cranny. You've made this home for yourself inside of this tree for you to retreat to. I love that. And I love that the tree's involved here too, because it suggests that we can learn from what's outside of ourselves, even when we're acting as the hermit. So this is my number top 10 deck. This is going to be the Raven's Prophecy. Next is going to be a deck that held on from last year, and that is going to be Slavic Legends. I did use it infinitely more last year than I did this year, but this is still one of my all-time favorite decks of all time. And I think because it is so beautifully evocative. I can't think of a single deck in my collection that has prettier artwork than this. I mean, every single image in this deck I want to copy and paste and put into a giant frame. Like, I want to buy art prints from this creator and just hang them on my wall. This is what I hope my tarot office can be like. I recently added some built-in bookshelves, and so floor to ceiling I have bookshelves along one of the walls, and I really just want to embrace some of these earthy kind of dark colors. They speak to my soul, and they remind me exactly how I'm related to nature and how I'm part of nature too. I know I've spoken about this before, but the richness of the artwork makes me really feel like I need to step up to the plate and be present. It almost feels like to me, because the artwork is so loud and vibrant, that like I should meet it with the same energy and kind of put my whole self into it when I'm working with this deck. But I also get a lot of touches from the little botanicals. So for example, my grandmother's maiden name meant garlic, in the language that she had spoke. And I know that this isn't quite a garlic plant, but it looks like one to me. And so I'm usually able to kind of look at the botanicals that are in this deck, and even if they're not quite like spot on, they look close enough to a particular botanical that I've worked with in order for me to make meaning out of it. So I have kind of a reciprocal relationship to this deck. I bring in the knowledge of the plants, of the animals, and then it in turn kind of gives me the knowledge that I seek. Look how beautiful. I love this deck. In general, I just love like ultra contrasted, super saturated images anyway. I think my filming style probably shows that, because I definitely up the contrast and the saturation. So that was number 9, which would be Slavic legends. You're going to see from number 8 that we actually, this was a very good year for the birds. So number 8 is going to be My Little Bird Tarot by Shanna D. This deck feels like taking a warm bath with like a nice warm cup of tea. I don't think that there is anything more peaceful than viewing this artwork. I'm a massive fan of botanical illustrations anyway, which is what originally caught my interest in purchasing this deck, is that this is also the type of artwork that I like to have in and kind of displayed around my house. I really like to approach nature from a science kind of oriented direction. And so knowing that this is Audubon's artwork really kind of feeds into that little scientist that is inside of me. I would say that in my experience working with this deck, I definitely feel like a page of swords when I come to the table. It kind of gives me a lot of different varieties of perspectives to contemplate, because I feel like each bird kind of brings to the table something else, something new for you to kind of chew on. But also it's really easy to personify them. I think that the images that Shanna chose are just so full of life. They're so rich. And the way that these animals are drawn, you can totally feel like they are existing like within these like rich inner worlds. So I always want to go out and explore new things, both the science part, but also like just kind of explore the world with these birds every single time that I use it. So I'm going to say that this by far is the deck that brings me the most contentment in my life. It is the deck that is soothing to me. It is the deck that soothes my nervous system. I can use this deck for a variety of readings, and I feel like it always meets me where I am. So this was Little Bird Tarot, which was number 8. Next, I have another bird deck. I told y'all it was the year for the birds, and that is going to be the Crow Tarot. And holy shit, guys, if you would have told me last year that this was going to make it on my top 10 list, I would have told you you were out of your mind. I was so close to throwing away this deck, like not even giving it away. Like, I'm just kidding. That's like really sacrilegious. I would probably never throw away a deck unless it was like probably counterfeit. But I came so close to throwing this deck at the wall, I think is what I'm going to say. I have had the most tumultuous relationship with this deck, but I think because I wasn't ready to fucking shut up and listen to what the crows had to tell me. And once I humbled myself a little bit and I said, you know what, I don't know it all. I'm going to try my best to listen to the crows. That's when I started not only deepening my relationship with this deck, but deepening my relationship with crows in general. I like having a deck that is so focused on one particular type of bird, because it really allows me to take note of them, not only kind of in a spiritual sense, but also in my everyday life. You know, I really try to live as presently as possible. And there's something about having a deck that is so focused on a particular type of animal that makes you feel like you're walking side by side with them through life. And they're kind of your accountability partners. So that is my very felt experience of working with this deck, but I think it is an incredibly good reader. The crows, in my opinion, are kind of mean. They don't mince words. They kind of tell you what you need to hear. It's definitely like a Queen of Swords or like a King of Swords kind of deck, but I don't mind their brutal honesty, because I feel like they are partners in life kind of walking with me. So I love the hell out of this deck. I cannot express how much I love it. I think you can probably hear it in my voice how much I love this deck. So this was the Crow Tarot. That would be number 7 on my list. Next is going to be a deck that joined me late of last year. So I've only had this deck for probably about 7 months at this point, maybe a little bit longer. And that's going to be my Architect's Tarot. Here are the edges, here are the backs. This is an indie deck. And it doesn't come with a little white guidebook, but the creator does email you a PDF in case you're interested in hearing his perspectives on this artwork. So I love the Architect's Tarot. The Architect's Tarot is definitely kind of like a dream me kind of deck, right? Like I think we all kind of have decks that kind of like Lisa Papez says kind of represent our fantasy self, and I think that this is definitely the deck that does that for me. I like to think that I am pretty cognitive, and I think that I am. I'm much more of a feeler than I am a thinker, but this is a deck that really tries to kind of bring out that thinking side of me. A lot of times when I am reading tarot for myself, for other people, I'm very empathic in a sense. So I kind of get hit with the feeling first, and then the thought comes second to kind of justify that feeling or explain that feeling. Whereas I feel like with this deck, it tickles my brain first. And then I'm able, from like a kind of detached perspective, able to analyze my feelings. And I think partially it is because the people are so small, you know, they are not the object of this thing to consider. Instead, they're just kind of there, they're kind of existing. But because this is a deck that represents like the architect, it kind of shows how our environments can play on us as individuals. And so I like the way that the perspective is shifted in this deck in a way that nothing else in my collection has, because it's less so about the people and more so about what is going on in the environment and how is that impacting the people. The people kind of come second to that. And so it's vastly important to me, usually after I have like a very intense journaling session or therapy session or just a cry session, I come to this deck for a bit of a breather. It is a deck that provides me with clarity. It's a deck that provides me with a breath of fresh air, and I'm so thankful to have it in my collection. Look at this, I love this. And you can see Seven of Swords, the person is tiny down there. They're not even like the main attraction of the Seven of Swords. All right, so this was the Architect's Tarot. So that was number 6. All right, now time for number 5, and I have one that I absolutely adore for number 5, and that is going to be Tarot of Trees. I would not be surprised at all, guys, if this one keeps creeping up the list. I'm going to hold this one up because it's a little bit tinier. So this is a deck that just reminds me of everything that is joyful and beautiful and gleeful about tarot. It is the deck that I most use when I'm reading for clients. So I have a lot of really beautiful memories attached with this deck in which I've had a lot of like one-on-one connections with people. This is a deck that even though it doesn't have people in it, I think that it reads very well for others, and actually I would argue that that makes it an even better reader for others, because you know, if you have like, say for example, someone that looks a particular type of way on a deck, or someone that looks like they're doing a particular type of activity, sometimes people cannot relate to that. But trees are kind of the basis of who we are as individuals. Nature is the basis of who we are as individuals. And so when you have the Two of Wands and you have one tree that's kind of drifting off here to the side and it looks like he's trying to go into this water, I think people can really relate to that image because they can see themselves in this landscape. And so I think the artwork is incredibly accessible. I think it's clever. I think it is cheeky. I think it is way smarter than what people give it credit for. I love the fact that the suits all have their own colors too. So the sword suits is kind of like this red color. The cups have this green. The wands usually have blue. Let me get to the last one. And the pentacles have this purple. It makes it very easy for me to count elements when I am reading for other individuals, which is something that I like to do. Say, for example, if they have a lot of green in their reading, then perhaps they have like an overflow of that emotional energy because that represents the cups. And so it's just a damn good reader. It's a damn good reader, guys. And it makes me smile and it makes me happy. And like, look at this Knight of Swords who literally looks like he's about to stab someone, but at the same time, he is kind of weeping through the process. I get so many feelings from these cards. It's unbelievable. We have the Four of Cups here, and this tree is kind of folding amongst itself, right? Like it's kind of holding itself in this position to where it's not interacting with anyone else. It's just kind of sitting there. It's kind of standing there knowing who it is amongst the community. Six of Cups. Look at all these little bouquets the kid is trying to give you. It's so sweet, so sweet. So this was the Tarot of Trees. which rightfully claims number 5 on my list. All right, next I have another that I just cannot stop talking about. This is another one I got in, late of 2025. And I think instantly I knew that I was going to love it as much as I do. And that is going to be my Terra Landscapes. I have edged it in this color. I feel like with this kind of back and this color, it almost kind of looks like light sears. But I don't mind that. I like it. So that being said, Terra Landscapes, y'all. What a good deck. What a good deck. I really have gone to this deck for so many different moments. Like I said, again, I really like a deck that doesn't have people in it because it allows me to kind of step into the artwork for myself. And I find that to be what I really need when I'm reading for myself and for others most of the time. I like that most of the creatures are solitary. It gives me the opportunity to kind of see where I fit into the perspective, where I fit into the situation. Since I use Terra a lot for interpersonal work and intrapersonal work, I find that to be a very valuable insight. I'm obsessed with this Hierophant. Anytime there is a tree for a Hierophant, you can absolutely bet your butt that I am going to get that deck. Like, it's the whole reason I bought Naturescapes. It's the whole reason I bought this deck. Like, I need more trees for Hierophants. Please, please, please. This is so beautiful. And the fact, like, the tree is also kind of, like, in, like, this autumnal state just makes it even more beautiful because, like, the tree has seen so much. If we, like, see autumn as, like, kind of, like, the late stages of the tree's life, I just feel that it carries so much wisdom. And it has, like, all these gnarly kind of legs. It's just stunning. It's gorgeous. The Three of Swords with, like, the polar bear and losing his habitat. There is nothing more Three of Swords than that to me. Look at the Nine of Swords, these colors. The application of color on this is so beautiful. We have the Two of Wands, and you have all of these little pink flowers, which just kind of represent, like, little blips of hope moving forward. It's just so fucking beautiful. Like, I love this deck. Love, love, love. Like, I don't even care if it has, like, a bad bin. Like, this card stock is so jank. Like, it is not, it's not even at all. Like, it has a very serious bend. I don't even care. It is wonderful. It is great. It is the Terra Landscapes, which would be number 4 on my list. All right, now we're getting into the super predictable one. So if you are a regular watcher of my channel, I think you know what's coming next. And I'm going to go ahead and say for number 3, I have to pick the Radiant Wilds Tarot. Would there be anything else? No, there would not be. Call me anything, but I'm always predictable. So Radiant Wilds, the deck that taught me how to be a body present woman. That's why I love this deck so much, because this is the deck that told me to look at my relationship with my body and to start living inside of it. I have an immense amount of earth in my chart, but I think for a long time I kind of sought that earth element outside of me. And I think that's beautiful, like to engage with nature, to engage with good food, to engage with like beautiful clothing, like all of that is very important. But this is the deck that reminds me very painfully, obviously, that I need to be present in my own body. There's something about the way that these women are positioned, which just make me feel like they are incredibly body present. I do wish there was more body diversity. Like, you do have a nod to some non-binary figures throughout, which I really appreciate. You do have quite a bit of figures that are non-white, but at the same time, like, as someone who is like plus size, like, it would be nice to have more body diversity, but even still, like, I think that that is like my only fault with this deck, and it's probably why it's placed like number 3 instead of like not number 2. But with that being said, I love how, like, essentially people, I just love watching how their bodies are held, and I love the positions of their bodies, and saying to myself, like, I could live that body presently too. So for that reason, this deck has a very special place in my heart. I also use this deck for creativity work. This is a deck that encourages me to use my own voice. Look at this 8 of Wands. Like, yes, we are rushing forward with momentum. Like, yes, I have something to share with the world. And I think it's a deck that helps me to see things big picture. I like a deck that kind of scratches the brain, and similarly to the way the Architect's Tarot kind of hits me in that brain space, this deck does too. When I take a second and I kind of look at the environment that these women are in, the colors are very intentionally chosen. The landscapes are very intentionally chosen. Look at that 2 of Wands. And then we have Saturn. So it's like, what is your responsibility moving forward in this situation as you're planning? What are your limitations as you're planning? So there's like little nods and nuances where I can just kind of mine these cards for additional wisdom. And look at that Ten of Wands. Like, it might be heavy, but she's absolutely carrying it. So this was the Radiant Wilds Tarot. Are y'all proud of me because I said it right? You know, I've been calling it the wrong name for like fucking 3 years, but it's fine. I said it right this time. I'm getting better at saying it correctly. All right, now is number 2, and I wouldn't be surprised if y'all know this one too as well if you've been on my channel. What other could it be but William Blake? What other could it ever be besides William Blake? Oh, a deck that speaks to my soul. I can try my best to describe how I feel about this deck, and I will at all times. Because I think that this is a deck that deserves to be like gushed about. I have such a strong kind of guttural, and I keep always mentioning guttural because that's like usually where I feel my intuition at play, but I have such a guttural response to this deck. When I first started college, I took a British literature class because I am an English teacher. I think many of y'all know that. And one of the first classes I ever took was like British Lit, and we studied romantic poetry. And so the first poet that we studied, because he was like early romantics, would be William Blake. And I remember just my eyes being completely opened to another sector of like literature that I had never encountered before. And so this deck at its core kind of reminds me of those years of kind of like being like 18 and 19 and like getting so excited about studying literature that was beyond me. So there is something very deeply nostalgic about that, but also this artwork, like this is fucking ridiculous for Judgment. Like just, this is fucking ridiculous. Like she is transforming into this butterfly, she's transforming into this kind of ethereal creature. And you have some of these people that are behind here, they're kind of waiting their turn. This guy down here looks like he's been waiting a while just depending on the decay, but she has other people that are waiting for her to join them. So like what a perfect depiction of what Judgment means to me is that like it's your time to rise up and to join those that are waiting for you, to join the goals that have been waiting for you, the purposes that have been waiting for you. This is one of my favorite cards in all of my decks possible. This deck absolutely transformed the way that I read tarot. Look at this nature when we have the roses and we have the lilies right next to it. And I can't get over it, and I won't get over it. This deck is home to me. I do have a walkthrough of this one, so if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on all of the cards, I'll leave a link in the description box below to it. It is a very long walkthrough because I had a shit ton of stuff to say about it. But for now, let it just suffice. William Blake is a home amongst homes for me. I fucking love this deck. Oh, 5 of Science. Look how good that is. Oh, he's trying so hard to kind of break free from these bonds, but he can't. All right. And then the last one. Y'all knew it. I knew it. Everyone knew it. Sorry. I mean, I'm not even going to apologize. It is Terra Botanical. It is this deck. It is the deck that is my home. It's just the deck that's my home. It's my deck that's everything. I have edged this one in black. This is my copy that I show on TarotTube, as well as the copy that I read for with clients. This deck, I have said before, is kind of like a grandmother that gives me a warm hug. What I really appreciate about this deck is that it asks me more questions than it gives me answers. So there's something about the black space which really puts me in a very meditative space, which allows me to go within myself and say to myself, no, Kate, you know the answer. Don't look outside of yourself. Don't text anyone. Don't read it about in a book. Don't search for it online. Don't post about it. Don't ask anyone, but just like ask yourself, like, what do you think? And there's a way that this deck holds the stillness for me that is unlike anything else in my collection, but more importantly, like anything else in my life. Even on a card like this, which is the 9 of Cups, which is rather cluttered, there's enough space in here in the background that is black to where it feels like I can just kind of nestle on in. And while there's this whole party of cups that are going on around here, everyone is like really happy, everyone is really joyful, I can just sit right there or even right here and take a moment to kind of breathe for myself. This deck feels, if I had to associate with the part of my body, this deck feels kind of like the respiratory system. It's the one that encourages me to have careful, measured, deep breaths. It's the one that regulates my nervous system. And it's the one that feels like home. And this was actually the first card that I ever pulled with this deck, so I'll share with you. When I first pulled from Terra Botanical, I asked what this deck were to offer me. Like, what would it provide through my lifetime of working with it? And I got the Queen of Pentacles, and this is actually sea grapes. But to me, it looked like it was a heart. And so there's a lot of emphasis on the community in the guidebook for this deck. Essentially, what it says is that sea grapes grow in groups, and essentially they have to be in groups in order for them to be successful. So there is this concept of like the nurturing of a community, just like the Queen of Pentacles would. But to me, it felt like there were just these veins that were dripping down a heart, like a beating heart. And so I felt very present with it, because I told myself, you know, if anything, I'm always going to have this deck to return back home to. And there's always going to be a place for my heart, my beating heart within this community. So that is Terra Botanical. Love, 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 love. I have a few prized possessions, you know, for example, like my wedding ring and like a few things from my ancestors. And I think that Terra Botanical is right up there with my most cherished possessions, for sure. So with that being said, I will go ahead and wrap this video up. It was so fun to talk to y'all about my top 10 favorite decks. I really should have, like, I've kind of been like a little bit of a filming red. I should have filmed this video weeks ago, because I'm leaving this space on such a high after talking about all of these beautiful decks and what they bring into my life. I love videos like this. I love seeing people's top 10 lists. Like, please show me your favorites, you know? Because it just reminds me how beautiful exactly this practice is and how beautiful tarot is in general. So I thank y'all so much. I am going to go and film a part 2 to this, where I share the 5 decks that I think will make it on this list next year. And I'll leave a link in the description box below to that one. But most importantly, I just want to say thank y'all so much for being here, and I'll catch y'all again next time.